Yeah, so welcome if you're just joining us. Go ahead and enter in the chat window. What is the thing that frustrates you the most about trade shows? And we decided to add a number 5, which is expense, to that list. 1, prep and logistics. 2, follow-up. 3, source feet. 4, something else. And 5, expense.
Oh, the prep and logistics is just absolutely mind-boggling because you can't forget anything. If you forget something, it's going to be pricey.
Yeah.
And getting it there is going to be pricey.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you get there, if you can't just take it in, you have to have, what's the name of those people?
Oh, the union folks, I think they're Freeman in Las Vegas.
Yeah, Freeman in Vegas. Yeah, they have to do everything.
Mm-hmm.
You can't even unload your own truck if you want.
No. Yeah, they have to have the union people do it. So yeah, Dana says, as of late, a lot of people do not have business cards anymore. That's frustrating. So, they're either using the electronic Popple or, the other funky little applications that give people your contact information, or a lot of people are hanging on to their contact information a lot more than they used to. They don't want to enter your drawing or anything else because they're afraid of what's going to happen to their data. Patty says, did we get any new customers from the event? What's interesting is sometimes it's like 6 months before you get a new customer from the time they meet you at a trade show, or longer. So how do you know if it was the trade show, or if it was the podcast they listened to last week, or the Wyvern Wingman they just opened this morning? You don't know.
Customers that you get from a trade show only happen if you follow up.
That's also true. All right. Well, thanks, you guys. We will focus on those things as we go forward. One thing that we're doing a little bit differently is, the Aviation Growth Engine. We've also called this the demand engine, but we're going to be kind of solidifying this business model more over the next few months to a year, and talking about where different things fall in this engine. And the interesting thing about trade shows is that you can do any of these activities at a trade show. And I think it may be one marketing activity, maybe the only marketing activity that, well, okay, other than email. Other than email, it's probably the only marketing activity that we have that covers every single one of these phases. You can prospect at a trade show. You can do approaches to people who you think are going to be good customers, even if you've never seen them before. You can visit with customers or future prospects that aren't customers yet, but should be, and that maybe have been on your list for 6 months or a year. You can visit with them and see if you can move the sales process forward. We don't usually see many sales at a trade show, although they always announce the big deals. Boeing just bought X number of jets or whatever. That always is in conjunction with Farnborough or, some of the other big trade shows.
Yeah, but that's the termination. They didn't do it there.
No, of course, those deals have been in the works for months, and they just finalize it so that they get the handshake moment at the trade show, and those kinds of things. And then also referrals and testimonials. Trade shows are great venues for that. So this is one of very few marketing activities where any of these sales and marketing uh, events can take place. So the trade show is a means to an end. These are the ends, is turning the wheel, right? This is the end. This is what we do in sales and marketing. So you can go to trade shows all day long, or all year long. And I used to belong to an organization that actually had 2 trade show booth setups. They were getting one in while they were sending one out, and they had 2 teams of people. One was just coming back to the office and the other was going out to a show, because they always had 2 trade shows at a time that they were either prepping for or exhibiting at or cleaning up after. So
What was it? There were between Europe
mm,
and 2 other countries and us, there are 250 aviation trade shows annually.
right. That's true. There used to be just like 4, but it's become such a competitive field, that you could go to a trade show every month or, some kind of a conference or event. Our philosophy has always been do fewer of them, but do the heck out of them. Just because you can spend a lot of money and not see a return on investment unless you do all the things that we're talking about, or at least more of the things that we're talking about.
In fact, we had a client once that was going to what, 3 or 4 a month?
Yeah, that's the one that was, they had 2 different booths that they were sending out and getting shipped back all the time because they were always in transit. You're thinking about the same one I am.
Mm.
All right. Okay, so let's dive in to the idea of trade shows and how we can get a return on investment for those. Hopefully, you have the workbook, so you'll be able to scribble and take notes as you go through this. I find that I remember things better and I get more out of the time that I'm spending in workshops if I'm writing things down. Just simply because I want to know what's going to apply to me. I want to apply it to my own situation, and I want to make sure that I'm doing things the way that I want to. Okay. So, what I'd like you to do first is on page 1, just circle which of these is the most important to you. Or, if you circle every one of them, then that tells you something as well. Is it meeting partners and vendors? Is it new customers, referrals, resales, recaptures, solving customer service issues, uh, meeting it with vendors, meeting with prospects for the first time, uh, making sales? Which of those are the most important to you with your trade show experience? Because it's going to be a little bit different strategy depending on what you're trying to do. Some people are just trying to establish thought leaderships. They just speak at trade shows and that's all they do. And then they do all of their sales other times and other places because they don't want to, they want to stay as an objective thought leader at the trade show and they don't necessarily want to be seen as pitching their product. But then as soon as you leave, they'll pitch you your product in your email the next day. So, some people, their primary objective is thought leadership rather than sales. For some people, their objective is sales or investors or students or something else. So does everybody have a pretty good idea of um I guess first of all, if you'd like to put in the chat window, what is the next trade show that you're going to and what is the objective that you have for that show? What's next on your calendar? And Wyvern people, I know it's probably, well, a big one is NBAA. You may have something between now and then that you're planning, but the NBAA show in October is part of the reason that we always do this workshop in July because people are always preparing, and this is a good time to start that. Um, for Schedplex, I think you guys have something in Europe coming up, unless I'm wrong. I could be wrong.
Yeah, the Europe show is in December. I don't know if the next one is either the Rocket Conference in Scottsdale or the Aircraft Dispatcher one that's going to go on this year. So it's either one of those two.
Oh, nice. Okay. Great. Do you have the same objective for both of those, or is it a different objective?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same, right? I mean, we're looking to just build a funnel.
Fill the funnel, right. Except you have different products for, like, the Rocket Conference, that would be one product, and the schedulers and dispatchers would be a different product, right?
Correct. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So, yeah, it's a slightly different angle for you guys depending on the show and depending on who else gonna be there. But as long as you've got one in mind, and we'll use that as our test case for today, we're not gonna solve the world's problems in an hour. But we'll do our best to at least give you a much better idea about your intent and your plan for your next trade show to make sure that you get a better ROI on that. Sound good? All right. Okay, so this workshop actually came from a product that we used to sell as a singular product, where we would work with somebody to get them ready for a trade show. And this is the process that we used basically It was a course and a workshop that ran for about 3 weeks. So we're going to cram that into an hour today, which is part of the reason that we did all the surveys so that we could focus on the things that you guys are the most interested in. So these are things that we're going to do as far as information gathering before the show, during the show, and after the show. And today is just an overview. These are different things that you can do to make sure that you get a good return on investment from the show. And if you have attended a show and you aren't sure if you got any value from it, then it is probably that you were missing one of these three things. Um, Either, contacts weren't tagged, you weren't keeping track, you weren't clear about what your objectives were before the show, you didn't follow up after the show, and these things happen for so many reasons. People get busy, it's just crazy trying to do a real job and then also do a trade show. And for most of us, it's almost treated like a second job, to prepare for, execute, and follow up after an event. All right. So we've already spent a little bit of time on this. We're going to assume, for the purpose of this workshop, given some of the data that we've collected, that the objective is sales. So you want to attract the right people to your booth. You want to get them involved with your product or service, and you want to get permission to contact them later and come out of the show with more warm prospects. In order to decide what the ROI is on a warm prospect, of course, you have to know what your turn rate is, what your conversion rates are. So for every warm prospect that you have, there's a certain average dollar value of a transaction. So that's one element of that. And then there's also a customer lifetime value. How much is that customer likely to be worth the time that they work with you? Um, So those are a couple of numbers that are really, really helpful to have. Another number that is really helpful to have is, for every warm prospect that you get, how likely is that person to turn into a customer? So for every person that you meet at a trade show, and the longer you've been doing this, the better handle you get on, it's 20%. 20% of the people that you have a really good conversation with and that you put in your A-list category, 20% of those folks actually eventually become customers. And that might be tomorrow, that might be next week, that might be next month, that might be next year, but you have a little tag in your CRM that says NBAA 2026 or RACA 2026, or whatever the name of the event is. So you know how you met them for the first time, or you know that you moved the football during that time.
I'm going to mention a rule that is sort of a rule of thumb for sales from one of the courses or more that I've taken over the years.
Mhm.
That is, out of all the people that you think you're going to try to sell to, 20% of them don't need to be sold. They're going to buy.
I didn't mean
20%,
that, but okay.
20%,
Yeah.
20% of them
Mhm.
will never buy.
Mhm.
60% are on the fence, and that's where your work is.
Mhm. True.
And this starts, well, I don't know if I may be out of sequence here, but you have to start prepping for a trade show like 6 months in advance, and then again at 90 days, again at 30 days. There's different stuff you got to do. And one of the things that, if you haven't been recently, well, not about recently, if you haven't been, is they have these newspapers they hand out to you every day.
The dailies,
Yeah.
right. Mhm.
And to get into that, you have to have that done 30 to 60 days in advance.
Mhm.
Tell them what you're going to want in there, because once you get there, it's too late.
Yeah, they have those already mapped out because they just have so many things
Exactly.
to do during the show. So, yeah, and we'll talk about press as well, press opportunities at the show and so on. But we're going to assume the primary objective is sales. Is that fair? All right. Okay. So the first thing you need to do is attract people with the money, authority, and need for your product. The acronym is MAN, which may or may not be politically correct nowadays, but it's easy to remember, so we stick with that one. And you want to get them involved with your product. So, if you're selling software, of course, the easiest way to do that is to have some kind of a demo, a kiosk demo, something like that. If it's a physical product, uh, Angel, you were working with Outprops earlier, and they had a broken propeller, a couple of pieces of broken propellers that they were handing around at their booth. And that was really cool because they could actually talk about this is what happens when a propeller delaminates, or this is what happens when a crack spreads. And people can actually get their hands on it and see it. And that's something that, really takes advantage of the in-person nature of a show. So you want to get some way to get their hands on it. If you sell insurance or, something along those lines, then some kind of a, intellectual exercise like a trivia quiz or something along those lines is a really good way to get them thinking about your product. So you may not have a physical thing that you can hand them, but you do have, some way that you can get them involved.
One of the years we went, there was a company selling de-ice equipment,
Mhm,
and they had a de-ice machine there on the floor,
mhm,
simulator,
mhm.
and if you could go up and run it, and you'd see the video of what you're doing with the controls, and that was way cool. A lot of people went into that.
Yeah, people were fighting over turns with the de-icing machine. It was, something you'd never expect to see, but it was fun. And then the next thing you need to do is to get their permission or, give them a reason to contact them later. And this is one of the reasons that we like to not really do a lot of swag at shows. A lot of people will give away pens or hats or, blah, 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 blah. We like to send people a swag package after the show for two reasons. Number one, it gives us a reason to have their contact information, and number two, it makes sure that that swag actually gets to their office and doesn't get left in the hotel room. Yeah, hotel maids' kids end up with an entire year full of school supplies after NBAA because they get the little notepads and the little pens, and people leave them in the hotel rooms. And a lady that worked as a maid was telling me that she loves NBAA because she gets all the school supplies for her kids for the year after that show. All right, so before the show, we don't have 90 days before NBAA. We do have 90 days before the Europe show for Dana and Raqqa, I think, is coming sooner than that. But um, you guys have already been doing this, so you have some of this work done already. You know which shows are good for you. If it's a new show that you've not been to before, you're going to want to talk with somebody, one of the event organizers, and see if they can send you a package that has the demographics. Most of them have a marketing package for the show that will tell you the demographics of the people that are coming. And you're going to want to look at that from the perspective of, do these people have the money, the authority, and the need for my product or service? And which of our products and services is going to be the best fit for this show?
And you should be able to get that information from people you don't know from the trade show because they
Mhm.
scan everybody.
Right.
It'll give you a good start on who you think you want to sell to if you didn't know already.
Right. And often you can get the floor plan of the upcoming show or at least of past shows so you can see who all has exhibited there and who all maybe has attended. If you can get that information, they're not as forthcoming with that as they used to be. But if you can get that information, you want to winnow through that and find who are your top 10 most desired customers, your top 10 most feared competitors, and maybe your top 10 or top 3 most valuable partners. And if you know who those people are and you can circle them on a map, um, then you are going to save a lot of time and a lot of those miles on your feet uh, during that show because you're going to be able to plan that out a little bit better. And also, you'll be able to do another thing, which is to invite them to come see you instead of you having to go see them. That's one thing that we've learned in the last few years is, making appointments ahead of time saves me having to run around. And it also gives me more time. If I can book myself solid for the 3 days of the show and have people coming to me for consultations, then I'm not running around. I'm not wasting a lot of time, during the show, and I'm making the best possible use of that. And it also changes the positioning. If they're making an effort to see you, it changes the whole power dynamic of that relationship because you have something that they want. You're giving them a consultation and you've offered them, we're going to give you 3 good ideas for your marketing for 2027 if you come visit us during the show and spend half an hour. And you've done some pre work and you're going to provide some reports and other things for them. So they have a reason to come see you because they're getting something valuable and it changes that dynamic. But you need to know who those top 10 are so that you can do those custom invitations and things. You're going to want to get the show's schedule so that you know when are some education sessions and other things, maybe some press conferences and other things that are featuring your most wanted customers so that you can be in attendance and you can make sure that you are where you need to be most, and you're not just kind of rattling around at the show hoping for the best. You want to reserve your booth space. If you haven't already, the priority deadlines will save you a lot of money. If you do, especially on the premium spaces, like the corner spaces. We love corner spaces. We love spaces near the food. We love spaces near the skills demonstrations at the AIN shows, those kinds of things. Those are places where people are going to be collecting before and after the event. And, so they're going to be naturally spending more time there and kind of milling around. You plan your exhibit, signage, etc. Um, and plan a campaign to attract the right people to your booth. So whether that's a trivia quiz or a giveaway or golf or we had a magician a couple of years, other things like that that worked out really well. We figure if you're going to spend the money on the event, you want to spend the money doing something to attract the right people to your booth. And if you don't have a huge budget, there's things you can do like, um, mini clinics or um, trivia quizzes, things like that, where you're giving away a small prize every hour, every couple of hours. If it's a large show, then you may want to do something a little more over the top, like um, mini golf or something like that. There's a lot of things you can do depending on your budget and the size of the show.
Yeah, make sure your signs say what you do.
Mm,
I went to a trade show recently, and
couldn't tell.
I walked up to this booth and I said, "What do you guys do?"
Hmm.
"Well, we do." I said, "Really? Show me where on your signs it says anything about what you do."
Hmm.
And I said, "That's free marketing. That's all you get for free." But the other thing is you gotta have the right people in the booth.
Hmm.
You can't have somebody sitting on their telephone scrolling and doing us and ignoring people, but they also have to be knowledgeable and, cordial,
Hmm.
'cause
Oh, definitely.
I've seen too many of the other kind.
Right. That's for sure. Okay. We love what we call SMART goals: strategic, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. Not every goal can be all of those things, but when you can, if you say, we want 10 good contacts, 10 people who are likely to be prospects for us, 10 people with the money, authority, and need for our product that we want to have a really good conversation with. We find that a lot more valuable than 100 business cards with no relevance or uh, no knowledge of their situation or their problems. So, if you can actually have some deep conversations, a lot of people are just kind of going from one connection to the next and, just really working the room or whatever. I'd prefer to be slower about that. Uh, and I have a system with my pockets. I always wear a jacket with pockets. So, we have the right pocket is for the A1 contact. So if I have spent a long time talking with somebody, I've confirmed that they have the money, the authority, and the need for my product. They are a very likely most wanted customer. They go in my right pocket. And so, if you see me doing this at a show, you're gonna know whether you're a right pocket person or a left pocket person. I try to be discreet about it though, so I wait until they leave the booth and then I put it in my pocket. And then the left pocket is for people who I'm not sure about. They may be good customers. I don't know yet. If they are neither of those things, they go in a bowl, and I deal with them later. And this is for the people that have business cards. Dana, I know your frustration. A lot of people are doing the electronic uh, and the badge scanning and the other things like that. So it's not quite as easy to do that kind of categorization. But in those cases, you do have to, and I like using the voice memo on my phone because that way I'm not sitting there typing all day. I can get some good notes about that contact without spending a lot of time entering contacts or entering data into the system that has scanned their badge or whatever. All right. So
It's
stick.
what I was going to say, with respect to that, you need to make sure you have your LinkedIn profile up to date.
Yeah.
People check that even in a trade show.
Yeah, they'll look you up. They'll stand there and look you up while you're standing there. It's kind of awkward, but or while they're waiting in line at your booth, what do we know about these people? Who do they know that I know? And so on. Whether they're preparing for the conversation or whether they're just checking you out to see if it's worth their time. It's hard to say, but yeah, it's really helpful to have those things as well. One thing that's kind of neglected a lot is we like hosting a breakfast at NBAA, and that takes some advanced preparation as well, but it really does help us have some quality time with people, not on the floor. So, it's quieter, it's more private, it's, you can actually have a high quality conversation at breakfast where having a confidential conversation in your booth can be kind of intimidating for people. They don't wanna tell you all of their problems and a seething mass of humanity, right?
Yep.
So, um, yeah, speaking opportunities, I think, are hugely underrated, uh, because you get a captive audience to talk about your subject. You can't pitch your product, but you can talk about your subject matter and position yourself, really nicely, and people do a good job of positioning themselves that way. So, we're not gonna go through every one of these things. I just wanna hit some of the highlights that you guys have talked about, but you have the whole list in front of you, so we can dive into this during our mini clinics and during our office hours as we choose. Oh, man, there's so many different things. Reconnaissance, this is one that I love doing. If you know somebody, who works with a competitor or a partner or anything else, and if you can coordinate what they're doing, some folks will do a treasure hunt or something like that with all of their partners across a trade show and say, do like the insider thing where people have a treasure map, and if you get stamps from all of these people, then you get some kind of entered into some kind of a drawing for a larger prize, things like that, the under the table things. Those are always fun. Joint marketing opportunities. So, maybe there are opportunities for you to have your booth near other people. The fuel companies do an amazing job of this. They'll have an entire row of FBOs and other folks that are that they are the fuel vendor for these folks, and so they'll subsidize their booths and do some nice things so that they have kind of a cohesive appearance and, they're able to have that presence there that they wouldn't have been able to afford otherwise and have a much larger presence. This is one that I love, the FAQs. If you create an FAQ prior to the show and make sure that everybody who is manning your booth knows the FAQ. So, they know what the current events are about your subject matter. They know how you want questions answered. They're not going to be pinned down and they're not going to be uncomfortable with a question that they don't know how to answer. So, doing that 30 days before the show, will give you an idea of what's going on in the news and what people are going to be talking about at the show and what people are going to be asking you questions about. So those FAQs I think are really, really helpful, especially if you're hiring people for the show, you wanna make sure that they are knowledgeable, as John said, um, and they aren't just deferring every question to somebody else at the company. Every single person there, every single body in your booth is a knowledgeable person that can represent your company well. brainstorm those tough questions, because you'd much rather do that ahead of time than have it happen in the show and have someone say something that you're not comfortable with. Anything else? I know you guys have all done shows and you have amazing tips and tricks and things like that. Anything that you like to do before the show that you'd like to add to all this?
Well, I mean, I start the outreach as soon as possible, right? I mean, like you said, if you can, but now again, the problem is that you necessarily are not going to get the list of attendees, and if you get the list of attendees, especially European, you're not going to get email addresses because of GDPR.
Hmm.
So it's a lot of digging and a lot of outreach via LinkedIn and everything else to try to get with those people. And like think like the aircraft commerce ones, we don't even get the attendee list on the app until like 2 weeks before the show, right?
Yeah.
So 2 weeks before the show, it gets really crazy trying to reach out to everybody.
Right. Three tools that we really like for those things. One is Find Email. Um, it's, you know, kind of violates the spirit of the GDPR, but it does a really good job of finding people's emails, either by name, company, URL, LinkedIn URL, whatever you can give it, the more information you can give it, the more likely it is to come up with an email for you. And it will batch process as well. So Find Email and Apollo both are really good tools. Um, Angel, you maybe are more familiar with Apollo than I am.
I just used it recently, but there's also it's a Google extension where when you open your LinkedIn, there will be an extension on the right side, and then you can just click it, and there you will see a reveal email, and then maybe there will be 1 to 2 emails you can use and send your messages to them.
Right.
So you're
And
saying find email, you can because I'm using a tool called Seamless AI, which does a pretty decent job of finding a person. Basically, I give it the website of the company that I'm after, and it comes up with a list of people, and then it'll give you can link to their LinkedIn page, and it does have email addresses and phone numbers and everything like that. And it's actually pretty good.
yeah, absolutely. I just put those in the chat window. Find Email with a Y and a
Okay, cool.
.io. And yeah, that tool also. I haven't used that one personally, but it sounds like a good one too. Um, and ChatGPT actually is pretty good at, if you put a long web search or put an agent together with your top 10 most wanted clients and say, I want as much information about these folks as you can give me from public sources, and let it run overnight or for a week or however long it will run, it does a pretty good job of finding data as well
Hmm,
in
interesting.
agent mode. But yeah, we can talk about more details in the workshops, but that gets a little bit complex. But there are ways of finding information about just about anybody, which should scare you to death. If you're being marketed to, if you're on the other side of this, but as a marketing person, it's a better time than ever to do that. And yeah, thanks for putting those tools in there. Um, Sales QL, that's another good one. All right, so we're about halfway through and we haven't yet gotten to the show yet, and which is appropriate. I think, we love what we call front loading. The more time we spend on preparation, the better things go in the long run. So if you have spent um, the more time you spend doing preparation, I feel like that's a really good way to make sure that you're going to get an return on investment because you've defined your goals, you've identified who you want to talk to, you've identified what you want from them, which is permission to contact them again and a reason to contact them again, and you've gone through that. So now we're going to continue with during the show. This is the easiest part, um, at least from the perspective, or the most fun part anyway. If you've done all your preparation, then you shouldn't be digging around on your phone, and you shouldn't be in your laptop, and you shouldn't be doing those kinds of things. You should have your eyes up when you're in the booth. Is the motto that we like to have is, keep your eyes up. Make sure that you are approachable. Make sure that you are available for any opportunity that happens, because you never know who's going to walk up to you when and what they're going to ask you or anything like that. And so this takes a lot of energy to be present and to be approachable and to be available and just to be open and curious to everything that's going on around you. Be curious about what's happening in the next booth. Be curious about the people that are walking by. Be curious about their watch. Ask people questions. And for those of us that are tend toward introversion, this can take a lot of energy to be networking. But you have to remember that at least 50% of the people that are walking by your booth are also introverts. And the people that you're milling around with at these networking events, at least half of them are also introverts. And you can help them out by asking them a question or engaging them in a conversation. They will be so relieved um, to be engaged, or to be involved in a conversation that's not a sales pitch. Um, Anybody have any sales or engagement or being present or during the show kinds of tips? I already shared my pocket trick. I guess I should have saved that for here.
For Paula, one of the most interesting things we did, I don't know if you recall, we did that cargo show in Orlando
Yeah.
last,
How did that? Yeah. Mhm.
right? So the guy in the booth next to us, when he was setting up, he had like suitcases full of little stuffed animals. I'm like,
Mm.
dude, what do you think? He goes, I'm telling you, by the end of the show, these things are going to be gone. He goes, I've been doing this for years. And he goes, by bring little stupid things that people come and they want to pick it up for their kid, I can get into a conversation with people. And he goes, that's what I've been doing for years. So it was, that I had not seen that before, but that was a pretty decent theory.
Brilliant, brilliant. And candy is, everybody's like anti-sugar these days, but candy always works. It's
Sure.
inexpensive and it gives people a reason to at least get closer to your booth, and they might actually read something or accidentally get involved in a conversation that way.
If you're lucky enough to to know, excuse me, to know and be able to employ good magician,
Mhm.
that is amazing.
We're
I
big
mean,
fan.
because we did that for a trade show once, and I mean, people just weren't stopping by the booth.
Mhm. They were just
He stepped out in front of the booth and was playing with his cars and flipped them all over the place and got all of these people to help him pick it up. And while they were doing that, he was
starting
talking
to
about our products
uh-huh.
and our service. We ended up with more people there than you could shake a stick at.
Started with a 52 card pickup.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I've seen that as well. And it does really draw people in.
Right.
Now, the one good thing, like the aircraft commerce shows, they give you an opportunity to bring a customer to do a presentation
Oh, nice.
with you, and that's like gold because the people are attending the sessions, and then they come by and want to talk to you more about it. So
Mhm.
that's a if the show offers that opportunity, you need to try to take advantage of it.
Right. So, yeah, those were joint marketing opportunities, and the show actually facilitated that. I thought that was brilliant. And you guys did that one with King? Is that
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
exactly. Yep.
Brilliant. Yeah, love those, and, those are fun. If you don't know what else to do with yourself, attend education sessions as a participant, because those people who are giving those education sessions love it when people engage with them and ask good questions and make it a little more interactive and a little more interesting for everyone. A lot of those folks are not professional speakers. They're folks just like us that have day jobs. And so if you can make those education sessions easier for them to deliver by being a good participant or a good listener, there's been some really good relationships that we've started that way as well. Um, yeah, attend the networking events, make those connections, take pictures or have somebody taking pictures. Tom Lelio, he's a broker and he's kind of a new generation broker. He actually hired an Instagram crew to follow him around NBAA one year. And I thought this was brilliant because, he's got somebody with the lights and the camera and everything else just following him around, taking pictures of him talking with all these people. And he got pictures with Steve Ursano, he got pictures with Ed Bolin, he got pictures with Richard Branson. You just never know what's going to happen at these things. And then he ended up with all of these pictures and short videos and other things. At the time, I was just like, that seems a little over the top. But afterwards, I saw the materials that he produced from that show. And, if you have the guts to do that, more power to you. That's one of those things.
And every year you're going to learn something you wish you'd known. I mean, when we first went to a trade show about 20 years ago, we probably made all the mistakes you could make. and
Right.
still, and still it was a success.
Right. So, yeah, basically at the show, eyes up. If we were to summarize this into one sentence, keep your eyes up and keep your phone in your pocket. Uh,
Exactly.
yeah, you do need to take pictures and, do the voice memo so that you remember who people are. But otherwise, you want to keep your phone in your pocket as much as possible. My memory is terrible with names, so I'm using the voice memo all the time and, making sure that I do that.
And if you decide to do an interview with somebody,
Yeah.
there are lots of empty rooms that you can just abscond with for a few minutes.
Yeah, depends on the
Video is one thing, but you just can't get good audio, even with if you wire them with a lapel mic or anything else, there's just too much noise. You gotta have good audio.
Mhm.
So we've absconded with rooms from time to time for 5, 10, 15 minutes to do that.
Yeah, exactly. So those are fun. First business day after the show, this is so hard. Because the first thing you wanna do when you get back from the show is just tackle your inbox because you've had stuff piling up, you've got emails coming in, you got work to do, and you've been gone for days or a week or, however long you've been gone. But the first thing you need to do is send those thank you notes, make those phone calls, and start your follow-up program. For the clients, one thing that we can do for clients that makes it a whole lot easier is to have a follow-up sequence that's already written before the show, where the emails are already approved and ready to go. So all we need to do is just enter your contacts from your business cards or from your system, badge scanner deal, whatever you got, and start that email sequence. Send the packages. If you have offered people packages for, doing a trivia quiz or whatever, they've thrown their business card in a bowl or let you scan their badge because you promised them something. Send those things the day after the show. The longer you wait, the more credibility you lose. Because people kind of divide their brain into this is in the office Paula and this is at NBAA Paula. And NBAA Paula doesn't exist anymore once I get back in the office. But if I had a conversation with somebody and then I get something in the mail from them a couple of days later, then I zap back to that NBAA Paula and I remember that conversation. But the more time passes between those two parts of my brain, the less I'm going to remember about that interaction or that conversation.
You
That's just
should have you should have access to your CRM, and you should at least in the evening before you go out and play, update it.
right. That's for sure. Hi.
Hi. One of the things that I do, and I love your voice message idea, is a lot. If you were lucky enough, like Dana said, if you're lucky enough to get business cards, what I've done is I've written notes with sticky notes and attached it to each of the business cards. So before the show, I kind of have a generic reply, but I like to personalize it, which I saw is even in part of your trade show. So what I'll do is I'll write all my drafts while I'm at the show, but I won't send them
Smart.
strategically one day. So I have the generic reply, but then I'll personalize it based on whatever I wrote on my sticky note so that they're all saved in my email draft. So Monday, all I have to do is go send, 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 send. And that's worked out really well.
Yeah, I love that. That is a brilliant idea. That saves so much hassle after the show. And, yeah, if you've got a horrible memory like I do for names, then, having those little sticky notes and they make them business card size too nowadays. There's sticky notes that are just the right size.
Ooh, I'll have to check into that because I'm using ones that are so small that, they're like an inch by,
Ah.
I think 2 inches by 1 inch, and they are kind of little. So I'll have to look at this card size. There's a lot of business cards, if you're lucky to get one, they're either plastic, you can't write on them. They're black and you can't write on them. I've even gotten some that are metal and
Mm,
they're really cool, but you can't write anything on them.
no. And I also learned, from an Asian show or from an Asian client, it is really disrespectful to write on a business card, especially if they can see you doing it. But I'm sure writing on a sticky note is perfectly fine, but it's really bad etiquette to fold. And I used to actually fold the corners as a code, and then I learned that that is a terrible, terrible, terrible thing to do in um, etiquette wise, so you live and learn. There's no folding of cards and no mutilating of cards, anymore. So if someone gives us a card, we wanna, um, be respectful of that. So,
And we have 2 different approaches to business cards we didn't follow.
yeah.
She has one with no picture and just contact info, and I've got one, I don't know if you can see it,
Kinda.
but got my picture on it and contact information as well. So I've, actually used that a couple times. It really worked out well because when I ended up somebody gave it away, and I ended up meeting somebody that drove through the area and wanted to meet. Said,
Mhm.
"Okay." And we walked into the same restaurant and we knew each other, and we're just crazy.
Yeah. And it's not vanity, it's a memory device, you remember that conversation when you see somebody's picture. So all of the brokers that we know, all of the, people who are in a profession where their brand is their face, we really do recommend putting your picture on your business card. All right. So executing your follow-up program, we have a whole workshop on holding patterns. And we're not going to get into a whole lot of that today, other than the fact that even just the warm or even cold prospects, you want to make sure that they go into some kind of a holding pattern. And so, if you have a regular email newsletter, and I know most of you guys do have something that you can put them in, and that will be at least one waypoint in this holding pattern, right? Um, you may also want to send them a book. You may want to connect with them on LinkedIn, whatever waypoints you can put into this holding pattern, the more solid it is. Maybe give them a phone call once a quarter or once a year or something like that and just say, hey, we met at this show and I just wanted to catch up on something we talked about. Or, I wanted to see how you felt about this particular current event. If something came up in the news that made me think of you, other things like that. And you can actually use ChatGPT to say, I would really like to reconnect with this person. Give me some ideas, based on things that have been happening with them. Maybe they've been in the news. Maybe they've had something happen in their annual report or something like that. They've been hiring people, whatever it is, you can find a reason to reconnect. Um, some folks still do snail mail, especially in the United States, snail mail newsletters. And actually, there's been some data that those are performing better than ever in the last 3 years because there's so much AI slop on the internet that physical paper, um, postcards or newsletters, things like that are making a bigger difference now. And of course, emails. So all of those things go into a great holding pattern. And, so most of the people that we talk to, the average sales cycle is 8 months. So, we meet somebody at a show. If it's the first time we've met them, it is likely that if they're going to do business with us at all, it's going to be 8 months before we're actually doing business together. So that long sales cycle takes the pressure off. but it also makes sure that, we need to have them tagged in our CRM, and we need to make sure that we're having regular touch points with them so that we know by the time they eventually become a customer, is this person, somebody that came from that show or was influenced by that show, even partially. Okay, last thing, and then we'll just kind of go around the room and ask everybody if they have anything that learned that they didn't know before. Hopefully, everybody has one thing at least. After action report, 90 or 180 days after the show, depending on your business type. So if you sell a less expensive product, you want to do 90 days. If you are spending a more expensive product, so, if you're selling airplanes or hangars or, whatever, you want to go 180 days or even longer, even. You want to prepare a report about that show. How many hot and warm leads did you acquire? How many are still in the sales cycle? And this should be an easy report to run if you've got these guys tagged in your CRM, or even if it's just MailChimp or something like that. That's not even a CRM, it's just a system, mail system or whatever. Of the leads that are no longer active, was it money, authority, or need that disqualified them? So if you're attending a show and you're finding that everybody is objecting to your price, then that's probably not a good show for you. And you need to be looking for shows in a different market or in a different, um, where the demographics are larger companies. Um, if it's the opposite, and everybody's overshooting your product offering, then you need to go to the smaller shows or shows where people have a different demographic. Um, Authority. Now, this is a big problem with schedulers and dispatchers. It's like such a fun show, but the majority of attendees are schedulers and dispatchers. They may not be making purchasing decisions for their company. There are some decision makers there, but there's a really high percentage of people that don't have the authority to be making decisions. So you don't want to spend quite as much sending them packages and doing the follow up and attending that show if that's not your intention. If they don't need your product or service, then maybe the topic of the show is not a good one for you, and so on. So, how long do you keep doing the holding pattern? Um, the great Dan Kennedy used to say, until they buy or until they die. As long as you think, or as long as you suspect that they have the money, the authority, and the need, you keep doing your holding pattern. You keep sending them emails. You keep doing all of those things. So this is a low pressure, high frequency relationship. And you want to just keep that going forever, unless they unsubscribe. And of course, you want to respect that. But that is the deal, right? So yeah, John Wooden, the coach, it's the games are important, but it's what you learn after you know it all that counts. So you probably have a feeling about each show. Is this a good show? Is this a bad show? But feelings are a good um, engine light, but they're not a good compass. Was this a good show? Was this not a good show? And so on. All right. So anybody want to share maybe one thing that you learned that you didn't know before, or one thing that we didn't cover that you wish we had? We'll start with John, and you can go first because you're brave.
Ha! Okay. Well, there are all sorts of things we didn't cover, but there are nuances, some of them, and some of them, because it changes a little every year, and it just, I don't know. I think you've covered most of what needs to be covered for this particular
Right.
meeting.
And we have a series of mini clinics and group office hours coming up this month. All month, we're talking about trade shows in those group office hours and mini clinics. So Adila and I will be sharing deep dives into different parts of this, because I know this was just a 30,000-foot overview showing you the territory.
Oh, there is one thing.
Okay.
You need to be prepared, because I don't know if it was NBAA or somebody else, but you will see a television crew roaming around the floors,
Oh, yeah.
and they will stop you and say, "What do you think about?" And be prepared to make a very short complimentary speech that also talks about what you and your products are.
Right, because they're advertising the show, so NBAA has hired this crew to advertise the show. So if
Yeah.
they stop you in the hallway and say, "What do you think about the show?" Then of course you're gonna wanna be, as complimentary as you honestly can about the show, but
But
also they ask.
toss your product mix in with it,
Oh,
that
yeah.
company name and so on. Yes.
Yep. True, true, true. Cool. Anybody else wanna share a thing that you learned that you didn't know before?
I think it's what you said about sending swag, after the show,
Yeah.
because you can bring the cheap little crap to the show, but then if you've got something better that you wanna get, I think that's a great idea.
Right. I loved your idea about the stuffed animals. You can get those pretty cheap from, I think, Oriental Trading Company is a really good one.
Yeah.
Cute little things. Yeah.
The other interesting thing that one of my previous employers did when they were first starting out was she had like a little oven and was making chocolate chip cookies at the booth, which was a massive hit, but also pissed off the people of the show. I mean, they don't want you doing that.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know if you can get away with that anymore, but that was
Mm.
that was a great way to get people in the booth.
That is. Or the roasted nuts, where they put cinnamon and sugar
Oh yeah,
with almonds. That
yeah,
smells so good and it carries, halfway across the convention center.
yeah,
Everybody's going, "Where are those?" And seeking
yeah.
them out. Mhm.
Saab used to do vodka shots at their booth, and I really think that would be frowned on now, but man, they had a lot of people there.
They still do that in Latin America. They do the tequila shots at 5 o'clock in some of the Latin American shows. I think that's
Yeah,
fun.
why not? Yeah,
Yeah.
you just got to try to find a hook, right?
Mhm.
Oh,
Right?
yeah. The other thing is, a lot of people in previous shows we've been to will ask for your business card and you put it in a thing, and then they do a drawing later and they give away something.
Mhm.
Make it appropriate. I mean, we saw people giving away iPads for crying out loud for a business card, and that's just ridiculous.
Yeah, because everybody wants a business card, whether or not they are even interested in aviation, much less in your product
Yeah.
or service. Right. Absolutely. Cool. All right. Well, we are going to jump into the group office hours or the mini clinic for this session for clients only. So we do have to change rooms just because our workshops are public and then those mini clinics are private so that we can actually dive into the details of your particular show, your particular situation. So we're going to switch rooms. And if you are joining us for that, we'd love to see you on the other side. If not, then we will see you later. And if you are not a client, of course, you're welcome to all of our public workshops and things like that. We think what's good for the industry is good for everybody.
Well, thanks a lot, Paul, as usual.
See y'all later. Ciao.